Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your game host, Clint Martindale.
Clint
No,
Martindale.
no, yeah. If you haven't figured it out, this is this is two and a half opinions. Um, just to remind everybody that if you like to listen live, you can listen on the website. So you can hear us live. I don't know if you want to, because if you hear us, recorded, you might be able to edit out some of the stupider bits. Not that we're stupid, but we're not exactly, you know, the sharpest knife in the drawer.
It is now essentially properly functional on both uh, both Messianic Lamb Radio and on YouTube. You can find us online and live for both, which makes it
Well, that's
convenient.
kind of a double whammy, isn't it? I mean, I'm all for giving some people a headache right up straight, but giving them a double headache? I don't know.
What do you mean giving them a double headache? We're not here for headaches. We're here for studying.
We are?
Yes.
Wait a second. There's not going to be a test afterward, is there?
Only if you're talking about your way of life with God involved.
Oh, okay. All right. So, meaning that, if I do something stupid, I'm not supposed to do it again? Is that what you're trying to say?
Life is a learning curve, and when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade out of it. If you
Yeah, and if
can't
you
make lemonade, then do what you can with the lemons to make it better.
right, and if you spill
Yep.
the lemons, it gets slippery and you fall over again.
Who has butterfingers like that? Anyways, anyways,
Not practical experience, but you know, so
but yeah, Messianic Lamb Radio has the links for YouTube set up so that you can view them live as you are listening along.
hmm.
And they have been very successful in making it easy to do both this show and many others, especially one that I know at least one individual on our two and a half opinions group enjoys, Torah Study Among Friends, which is usually immediately before this show. Well, not
Oh,
immediately, but close enough. And it's a rather interesting show where you can,
preceding us.
yes, most
Okay.
definitely preceding us. I mean,
Okay.
almost all the other shows precede us, I think. Unless we are the beginning and then we wrap around to the end and
Well, it's been said, we are the head and not the tail. So,
but anyways, what are we talking about today? I believe it is the Parsha Akrimot.
ah, Akare, Akare, leap year.
That is true. Though from my understanding it's called Akremot. It's it's referred to as either Akre or Akremot depending on your flavor text, if you will, considering that both Chabad uses both forms.
Well, true, but it is a leap year, so Akare is read by itself, and Moat, or I can't. I think it's pronounced something slightly different for next week's portion, which is the, again, leap year portions are separated. At least the double portions are separated.
Well, from my understanding, it's Akremot Kedushim if we're talking about the double portions. And
Hmm.
Kedushim is actually separate. We've got Akremot this go round, we've got Kedushim next go round.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right, so Akre Mot Kedoshim is read together on a non-leap year, whereas Akre or Akre Mot is read by itself on a leap year. Is that
Yes.
the right? Okay.
Yes. That is the way we have it, which for those who are trying to follow along, at least in their own biblical text. It is Leviticus 16:1 through 18:30. So, considering, how would we synopsize this? This Torah portion seems to talk a lot about sacrifices, does it not?
Well, let me explain. No, it's too much. Let me sum up. It's all about don't do that.
Don't do that. What do you mean?
Don't do that. It's all about the how to make atonement for this, that, and the other thing, and what you shouldn't do when you live in the land that I'm giving to you because of your forefathers. So it's essentially don't do that, right?
I can
Or is
see
that too
don't.
oversimple? That's too
I,
simple. Too.
Perhaps a little too simple, because there's a lot covered in this Torah portion about sleeping with individuals, about defiling yourself in multiple ways, uncovering nakedness, um, where sacrifices should be done, even for those who are strangers who are sojourning in your land. They're supposed to sacrifice in the same place you sacrifice.
Yeah, and 18:21, and you shall not give any of your offspring to pass through for Molech, and you shall not profane the name of your God. I am the Lord.
Well, there is that, but what I
Mm.
was referring to was the whole statement in chapter 17. And you should say to them, any man the house of Israel, or of the strangers who will sojourn among them, who offers up a burnt offering or any other sacrifice, but does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to make a sacrifice to the Lord, that man shall be cut off from his people. So
Ah,
even the sojourners have to pay credit where credit is due.
right, but we need to we need to expound upon that after we do the blessing and the reading, because it's not that you can't have food outside of the city of Jerusalem or outside of the temple. It's that if you make an offering, it must be brought to the temple. You can't make an offering of any other thing outside of the temple. If you
True.
do, you're cut off.
Well, this Torah portion does have a rather interesting startup, so why don't you get that blessing read? I will read off the first aliyah, which for those following along is 16:1 through 16:17 in Leviticus.
Okay. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notain ha'torah el melech ne'eman.
Amen. Leviticus chapter 16, verse 1 through 17, read from Chabad.org's translation. And the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's two sons, when they drew near before the Lord, and they died. And the Lord said to Moses, Speak to your brother Aaron that he should not come at all times into the holy within the dividing curtain in front of the cover that is upon the ark, so that he should not die. For I appear over the ark cover in a cloud. With this shall Aaron enter the holy, with a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall wear a holy linen shirt, and linen pants shall be put upon his flesh, and he shall gird himself with a linen sash and wear a linen cap. These are the holy garments, and therefore he shall immerse himself in water and don them. And from the community of the children of Israel he shall take 2 he-goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. And Aaron shall bring his sin offering bull and initiate atonement for himself and for his household. And he shall take the 2 he-goats and place them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And Aaron shall place lots upon the 2 he-goats, one for the Lord and the other for Azazel. The Lord then and Aaron shall bring the he-goat upon which the lot for the Lord came up, and designate it for a sin offering. And the he-goat upon which the lot for Azazel came up shall be placed while still alive before the Lord to initiate atonement upon it, and send it away to Azazel into the desert. And Aaron shall bring his sin offering bull and shall initiate atonement for himself and for his household. And he shall then slaughter his sin offering bull. And he shall take a pan full of burning coals from upon the altar from before the Lord, and both hands full of fine incense, and bring it within the dividing curtain. And he shall place the incense upon the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud of the incense shall envelop the ark cover that is over the tablets of testimony, so that he shall not die. And he shall take some of the bull's blood and sprinkle it with his index finger on top of the ark cover on the eastern side, and before the ark cover he shall sprinkle 7 times from the blood with his index finger. He shall then slaughter the he goat of the people's sin offering and bring its blood within the dividing curtain, and he shall do with its blood as he had done with the bull's blood, and he shall sprinkle it upon the ark cover and before the ark cover. And he shall effect atonement upon the holy from the defilements of the children of Israel, and from their rebellions and all their unintentional sins. He shall do likewise to the tent of meeting, which dwells with them amidst their defilements. And no man shall be in the tent of meeting when he comes to effect atonement in a holy, until he comes out. And he shall effect atonement for himself, for his household, and for all the congregation of Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam nota b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Neman. Okay, so don't do that, right?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to wind up explaining more on the whole don't do that bit, because we opened up with essentially, even though it didn't word it out loud, we opened up with the Day of Atonement at this rate.
Yeah, but it's strange that it's not called the Day of Atonement in this text. I mean, clearly it's talking about Yom Kippur, but it doesn't say it. So is there something in that it doesn't say what it is? But I mean, clearly, those of us who have read the text before over and over and over and over again, okay, yeah, it's Yom Kippur, right? So why not say what it is? Is that
Well, I don't have a proper answer for you, but the closest I can ever come up with, and this is thinking in a more practical sense, is this is one of those moments where Israel does what they promised they would do at Mount Sinai. We will understand what we will do, and we will understand what you're giving us, and then we will understand what it's for, what it is. And
okay?
the best description here is, I'm going to teach you the rules, the regulations. This is what it is. I will even tell you what it's for. But if you want to name it, I'm not going to give it a name, because it's the day that you are to atone, even to the degree that Aaron is to go into the Holy of Holies. He normally doesn't do that.
So essentially, it is we will do, and then we will hear. That's what you're referring to, right?
That is what I'm referring to, yes.
Okay.
But that's viewing it in a practical sense, in my opinion. There's probably more to your question than just the practical sense, but
Oh, don't think I'm more clever than anybody else.
oh, come on. You've got to. I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts. Don't sell yourself short just yet.
Wait a second. Is that a hike joke?
If you want to interpret it that way, it can be, but But that is only
Just
up to
because you're taller than me
interpretation.
don't mean nothing, okay? No, it we will do and then we will hear. Okay, that's a good take on it.
I
And
mean,
yeah.
in all consideration, the Torah portion continues even after that, delving on how sacrifices are supposed to be done, where they're supposed to be done, what happens to individuals who don't do them this way, um, and then what you do with the animals that you kill even further on down.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting thing. It's like the ashes of the red heifer, where it's killed in the holy place, but yet it's taken outside the camp to a clean place, and its whole body is burned up, its dung and everything else. Then they save those ashes from the red heifer to use in a cleansing, which, incidentally, you ashes. How in the world? Ashes are the basic ingredient of making soap. So,
Hmm.
there you use the fats and things like that. You use the ash. It's the actual catalyst that actually makes the soap. Strange, huh?
Makes this. What are you? What?
Okay,
The
the
ashes of
ashes
the
of the
red
red heifer, right?
heifer. Are you saying are you trying to use the analogy of soap as the ashes of the red heifer for the contact of for the defilement by contact of a dead individual?
Yeah, well, actually, the ashes of the red heifer are used in the procedure in order to cleanse the person who has come in contact with a dead body. So the same thing with the bull and the goat that is offered. Notice the bull is offered first, which is atonement for Adam and or his sons, whoever is the Kohen HaGadol. Then the sin offering for the people. Both of those animals are taken out the camp and burned in a clean place. Strange, huh?
Well, that that was muted. Well, I do. That is rather strange, but I do have to add to that of the a rather interesting understanding I've been shown here recently, um, with the help of my places of study. Um, so the under what do we know about the word atonement? In all honesty, what do we know about the word atonement?
Uh, at one mint, at one mint,
At one mint, you might have
atonement.
you might have to specify what you're referring to there, because
Um,
I've never heard this at one mint business.
okay, atonement means to make right or correct, right?
In
Is
a
there?
in a roundabout way, it's we'd have to delve more into the Hebrew wording of it if we want to figure out atonement, because atonement can be used for a mother giving birth, someone having a abnormal uh, bodily function. Usually it's not just about sin. Atonement can be used under the context of things that are not sin but ritual impurity.
Correct, correct. But what I mean by at one mint, it means to correct or to make the the joining between us and God uh, aligned properly. That's in essence atonement. yes, atonement can cover sins. It can cover a lot of things, but you are making yourself in right relationship with God. That's atonement. If you
I
got a
can,
better description, let me know.
I can see that, considering the understanding of covering. Um, let's use the example of going out to eat. You, me, my father, and Joe Billy Bob all choose to go out and get something to eat. I decided but I have to. Not everyone's prepared to pay for their own meals, so I decide to cover the meal for us. Essentially, atonement. I agree with your at one ment concept, but using atonement as a covering, I see atonement as a covering in the sense of covering is a covering is a representation for yourself.
A stand-in.
Stand in is like what I was actually seeking with saying a covering for yourself, because uh, jumping back to the meal statement, if I'm covering for you guys, I am actually, through my payment of the meal, I am representing all four of us.
True.
And that is what I'm implying with the direction for atonement whenever I refer to covering. So your at one ment statement can't, I believe, is more in line with you with what I'm trying to say now that you've explained it, considering.
Well, if I'm wrong, if you think I'm full of baloney, you say so.
No, I don't think you're full of baloney. I just didn't understand the at one ment statement. I've heard it a few
Okay.
times, but never really
It,
understood what they were implying.
it's a I think it's more of a Western understanding of an Eastern concept.
I I can see that, considering many of us in our Western mindset does have a hard time wrapping around the agrarian Eastern way of thinking that is spoken of in Torah.
True. True. Um it's making right with God. It's it's correcting the path, if you will. That's
And
it.
and that would be right. Yeah. That would be the direction I'm going with it, because it is that persona of, well, let's use the whole burnt offering, because I'm finding myself stumbling over my words. The whole burnt offering, as discussed in multiple of our previous shows and in one of my favorite shows on Aleph Beta, the whole burnt offering is used as a form of atonement as well, but the whole burnt offering's mindset is a sort of statement to God saying, I am in awe of you. Everything around me belongs to you, including myself. Everything
Okay.
everything that I own is yours.
Correct. It
Through
is through God gives us the strength to make more, earn money. God gives us the strength to prosper.
Exactly. And so it is that mindset, that at one ment, as you used for this train of thought, that it shows that the sin concept, we're going to jump to sin real quick briefly. Hopefully I'm making sense here.
Oh goodness, really?
And unintentional sin, not intentional sin. I'm not touching that stuff,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's multiple opinions on what intentional sin does. But anyways, the mindset of atonement, Usually, atonement here in the past has been applied to defilement. It's also been applied to unintentional sins in certain aspects. I can use sin as a perfect explanation to what I meant by the whole burnt offering. In a sense, in a roundabout sense, when you commit a sin, you are implying your own morality, your own way of thinking over God's morality, God's way of thinking. And so it is through that that atonement is needed, because you need to be reminded in a certain fashion. It's not your morality, it's not your direction, it's not your way of thinking that trumps God's. It is because of God's morality, because of God's way of thinking, you have your way. You have your morality, you have your way of thinking. You have to be in line with God. Your at one ment statement is actually pretty perfect here. It is that train of thought of your morality. Yes, it can be good. It can have many directions and many thoughts and many focuses. How great is a man's mind? But who made man's mouth?
Or who
If you
made
don't
man's
mind.
mind?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get that. And that's kind of why I said why I have this notion of at one minute. In other words, aligning ourselves to the way God thinks, to the way God wants things done. I mean, even in this, near the end, uh, these are moral things. Uh, Chapter 18, verse 22: You shall not lie down with a male as with a woman. This is an abomination. And with no animal shall you cohabitate to become defiled by it, and a woman shall not stand in front of an animal to cohabitate with it. This is depravity. These are moral things. Like you said at the beginning, there's all this stuff about uncovering nakedness. You shouldn't do that. Not to any of your relatives, close relatives, anybody. You know, it's even if it's your father's new wife, okay? Say he's a widower and he remarries, you shall not uncover her nakedness because she is your father's wife. It's no blood relation to you, but she is his wife. So hands off, don't touch. All of these things are morals because any one of these things can start a war. I mean, let's look at the um, the Greek War with Achilles and that. It was in Paris. It was
The Battle of
the
Troy.
yeah, Battle of Troy. I was getting there. I'm roundabout because Helen of Troy. So the Battle of Troy. That is a thing that came about because of lust. Okay, it's a war. It killed many people. Well, we don't know if Achilles was really real, but it's a Greek story. But the idea is that these things can ultimately destroy towns, states, nations, and it's not a good thing. So, to correct your standing with God, you make these atonements or offerings. No?
Yes, I agree. You make these atonements in order to right your wrong, to say I made a mistake. Here's what I'm doing to fix it.
Right. And the important part is to realize that you made a mistake. There is, um, let me see, is this the right?
The here's one for you.
Okay.
The goat does not take your sin for you so that you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry for doing what I did." I might do it again, but I'm sorry. No, the goat is to the goat or the bull is to represent the understanding of this thing just died for me. By all intents and purposes, I made this mistake. That is essentially me. Or that was me is a better way of looking at it. That animal was me. I have just now sacrificed what I used to be.
Okay,
And I
so
am trying again.
we could say that Paul or Shoal was correct in saying, you know, now that we have, and I'm going to paraphrase so people don't get upset. So now that I have been forgiven or I've had atonement, shall I sin more? Heaven forbid. Okay.
Exactly.
No, no, I shouldn't sin more. I should realize what I messed up on and not do it again. Or at least with all things that I am, try not to do it again. It's a oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It is a mile marker, a yardstick, whatever you want to call it, in our path in life to go, oh, yeah, no, not doing that again.
It's like, did you measure up this time?
Right. Or, okay, I've passed that mile marker and this is what happened at that point. I'm not going back there. I'm going to keep going forward. So these are all things, and it may sound weird, but um, I get reminded of my faults, you know, before I do them again, or before I even think about doing them again. They come to mind going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm walking this way. I'm not going back there. Sorry, not doing it. And some people get mad at you, like, "What do you mean? Come on, let's go have some fun." No, no, no. It does nothing but destroy. So, and that's all. Oh,
it's
excuse me.
it's even more interesting that the way that this Torah portion is laid out, I I would almost dare say, at least on a superficial position, the whole section of defilement and uncovering your nakedness seems out of place, considering we've been talking about blood here recently. What you do with blood, how you sacrifice,
Right.
what you do with this and that. It's all blood all the time. It's like that time of the month at the all women's gladiatorial arena.
That's just crass. That's just really crass.
I'm
That's,
sorry that was it's
but
it
no, if you want to go to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, now that's a comment that you can bring up.
true. Blood is compulsory. They're all blood, you see.
Yeah.
But it does seem out of place considering that we've got a section of nakedness right here, and then immediately after that, it starts dealing with different types of defilement. I mean, first we talked about what we do to atone, and now we're talking about what defiles. This
Or
Torah
what
portion,
you're atoning for.
that could be a possibility as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the very last uh, uh, verse is number 30, and that's in 18. It says, "And you shall observe my charge, not to commit any of the abominable practices that were done before you, and you shall not become defiled by them. I am the Lord your God." So yes, as Chris always says, Torah is not always chronological, but it is topical. I think that's how he put it. And so it's like at the very end, this is a closing statement or a bookend. Is there a bookend? Are there two bookends here? Maybe. Or is there what's the chiastic structure?
Well,
So
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a chiasm in here. I'd have
right,
to read up more upon it in order to find the chiasm, but
yeah.
I
So
wouldn't be
you shall
surprised.
so right. So don't do these so that you won't become defiled. So it's again, it's God saying, do this to be aligned with my way of thinking. And don't do that, because if you do that, then you won't be aligned with the way I think. Maybe it's an oversimplification, but that's what I see.
No, 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 no. You're that. I do see that. I do understand that. It is, and I'm pretty sure there's much more to it than just this. But right now, what we're seeing is this way of thinking, because God essentially at the very end of it all wants an aligned way of thinking that is in line with his train of thought.
Right. It's uh again, this may be oversimplistic, but it is an adult, a parent talking to a child, telling them, don't do this. This is bad. If you do this, you're going to be punished. You can make atonement, but you're still going to, you know, somewhere you're going to understand that there is punishment. And that's probably why we have the animal sacrifice system that was in existence. We don't have it right now because we don't have a temple, we don't have an altar. But it says here, bring this to the Cohen, bring it to Aaron, and let him put both hands forcibly upon its head, as to say exactly what you said. This animal is going to die because of my stupidity. Now that I added the thing stupidity because essentially, if you forget what he's telling you, then you have a lapse in judgment, or you're being stupid. Not that we are stupid, but being stupid is a different thing. It means you can recover from it. If you're stupid, there's no chance. Okay? Honestly. If you go through life working on being stupid, there's no chance. But if you realize that you can act stupidly but come back from it, then I think this is what God is telling us, or at least trying to tell us, because honestly, through history, even even the children of Israel, they did well in the sight of God, then they did evil in the sight of God. They did well in the sight of God, then they did evil in the sight of God. Back and forth. And it's as it is told to us. They experienced many times prosperity, a good life, a good land. Okay, and then they forgot, or willfully forgot. And then they had another judge and they did well, and then they forgot. Then they had another judge, they did well, and then they forgot. It's uh, uh what was that, the first time that I saw Brad and the first time I saw Bill Cloud? History repeats itself. Okay, not exactly. It's a spiral going through space. This top of this part of the spiral, or spring, if you will, is not the same as the top of this part of the spring. But between the two, they ring similar. History does repeat itself. And if man does not learn from history, man is doomed to repeat it. So we may not do exactly as our ancestors have done, but we may do something similar that our ancestors have done. And therefore, that's why God's instructions are here, so that we can atone or become one with God again at one mint. Yeah, this is the way Frank thinks. So if you think I'm crazy, write a rebuttal, send me an email. I don't care.
You, you seem to think you're crazy. No, 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 no. You're just misunderstood.
uh, Geez. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. No,
uh,
I see these things, and they they make connection, and in the two brain cells that I have floating around inside my head, and they make connection, and it's like, oh, wait a second, you're talking about this over here, but I'm over here, but you're talking about that over there. So it's just the way it is. So
so we seem to be covering this Torah portion rather quickly, considering there's so much here. But the end verses do kind of state as to what this entire Torah portion is about. You read them just a little bit ago, and you shall observe my charge not to commit any of the abominable practices that were done before you, and you shall not become defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. It is one he's using this as a means in which to say why the land is currently ripe for the taking for Israel. Two, he's using this as a means in which to prepare them for when they enter into the land. And three, when it comes to the Day of Atonement, he's wanting to make sure that they are in the right way of thinking. They are in the right mindset. They are aligned with God's intention for the world. Because if a single cog is out of alignment, the clock tends to not function as well, does it?
yeah, or it starts to chime wildly.
Yes. And as I've told many people in the past, Israel is not better than the rest of the world. Israel is not the greater, the fancier God's favorite son. No, 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 no. God chose them because God intended this is the purpose for Israel. It will fit right here in this cog so that the entire system will function.
Provided the other gears and cogs and widgets and everything else pay attention to what Israel's teaching them.
Well, there is that, but I'm trying to use this as the example of God is trying to set Israel up and through the Torah portion set us up to be in line with God so that the understanding can be set right, so that everything can move in the motion in the intention God had planned for this earth.
Right, right. But as for you, you shall observe my statutes and my ordinances, and you shall not be like any of these abominations, neither the native nor the stranger who sojourns with you. For the people of the land who preceded you did all these abominations, and the land became defiled. And let the land not vomit you out, having defiled it as it vomited out the nations that preceded you. And that's the whole shebang, the whole meatloaf, the whole package right there. Do this so that this doesn't happen to you.
Which the interesting thing about that statement right then and there is it brings to mind something that I get the feeling is not fully considered from time to time. And that is, yes, Israel was kicked out of the land. Israel was given their many, many, many chances to right their wrongs and not get kicked out of the land. But in all intents and purposes, the previous inhabitants and the inhabitants after Israel both have been quote unquote kicked out of the land
Well,
on multiple occasions because it's that way of thinking that the land is a creation made by God And the land, now granted, I'm not going into the Gaia stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to the Gaia realm.
Oh, don't worry. I'd
But
stop you if you were.
but the land was created by God, and so the land has some level of sentience about it. It's the checks and balances, if you will, of what God wants.
Right.
The
And
land is saying, this is the way God said it. Are you doing it this way? Yes, yes, no. Okay, we need to cover that if you want to stay here.
right.
I'm your tenant.
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing about, Adam being formed from the clay, from the earth. Um, you know, we are nothing but chemicals with a little bit of water added in to make this homogeneous, stuff we call skin and bones. Uh, but without the spark of life that is given from God, we're just things. Okay, but it's the how do I put it? You were talking about it. It's the oh, doggone it. It oh, I know what it is. Okay, it is the fact that even after the children of Israel were expelled from the land, the people who inhabited the land did not fare better. They did not produce better. They did. They actually did worse. Okay. Uh, After the children of Israel taken into captivity into Babylon, well, first off, the northern 10 tribes, Israel, okay, they were taken out. The lower 3 tribes, Judah or Judea, they were taken captive to Babylon. Anything that stayed in the land, the land didn't prosper. Okay, the land was given its Sabbaths, but the land didn't prosper. When the children of Israel were sent back, the land started to prosper again. When they got kicked out because of the Romans, the land, it basically became, I, don't
the
get upset, people. It became a dung heap. Okay,
the land needed its Sabbath. It had become defiled from its abuse both by Israel and by others. So it
correct,
needed its Sabbath.
correct. Now, the fact that the children of Israel came back to the land, I mean, there's the whole Balfour Agreement and all that other stuff. But as the children of Israel came back to the land became more prosperous. They caused things to bloom in the desert. They may not, in Israel, you got the ultra orthodox, the Orthodox, uh, Chabad, Breslev. You know, you've got Reform, and then you've got everybody else. They may not all see eye to eye, but the ones who actually see eye to eye with God, no matter how they do it, whether they read the Torah, but they pay respect to God. I believe that's really what God is trying to say. Respect me in my ways, and the land will be prosperous. As they've come back, the land has been prosperous. Is it perfect yet? No. No, no, it's not perfect yet.
I mean, heck, we've got Tel Aviv, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be perfect until Mashiach comes back. And Mashiach now, Mashiach now, Mashiach now. So, but the Most High, blessed be He just wants His children. That means all of us, not just Israel, but He wants His children to be in line with His thoughts and His ways. Yeah, we can't do some of this stuff because the facilities don't exist. But if we joined with Israel in spirit, in heart, in mind, and thought, these things will come around. It's the state of the world is horrific right now. There are things, even as we are prospering, there are places in the world that are just destroying themselves. They're tearing themselves apart. Is America the greatest? No. The only reason we exist is to help Israel. Literally. The only reason we exist is to help Israel. If we turn our back on Israel, America's not going to stand. It's just the way it is. And for the people that don't see that, I feel sorry. For the people that say, "Oh, you're just talking about God and stuff, and I don't believe that." Fine, don't believe it. See how things
Well,
go.
that's just like the way that Maimonides taught how Yom Kippur should be treated. Maimonides taught in the fashion of, if and I'm paraphrasing because I did
Right,
not
gotcha.
read this up well enough, but it's the understanding that for Yom Kippur, we'll use Yom Kippur because this Torah portion is here. For Yom Kippur, if you do not treat the sacrificial system, the ritual that is applied there, in the necessary way to be taken, it is as if you had never done it in the first place.
Correct.
It is that mindset that when you sacrifice for Yom Kippur, when that goat goes up there, that goat is it should be viewed as that goat is you. Because if it because you based on what you have done, your old self would have to be what is going up there. Your past, everything that you are, so that you can be a new individual,
Right.
is going
Everything
up
that
there.
led up to that instance that caused you to make that offering.
Yes.
You
Is
know,
essentially you on that offering.
exactly.
And if you don't have that mindset, is that it's as if you had never done that sacrifice to begin with.
Correct. So,
And I truly think, and sorry for interrupting
no,
there,
no,
but
go ahead.
I truly think that if we as a people in as a people as a whole, if we would actually view every aspect in that same light, every focus of atonement, every focus of the way we live, we would we would better understand God's mindset as a whole. Because
Yes,
without our understanding of why the sacrifices are the way they are, what's the importance of them, why we will still do them when the new temple is constructed. Without that understanding, it's all meaningless and we are not in line with God and we never will be.
that is very true. And um it reminds me of the part of the Torah. I'm forgetting where it's at, but it's where the person says, "Oh yeah, 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 I'll do all that and I'll have peace." I think it's Deuteronomy. I think it's actually no Moses talking to the people, going, "Look, the person that says, 'Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure, I'll have peace' in their heart, because they won't do all this other stuff. They won't adhere to God's ordinances. They're the people that are going to be destroyed, and unfortunately, they're going to take others with them. You know, it, it's just the way these things come about. It's You don't have to be, you know, ultra religious, hyper super duper whooper orthodox. Okay, you just have to trust that there is God. You trust that there is God, you do what God says. If you don't understand it, ask questions.
God gave you the instruction manual.
That's right. That's right.
Through this instruction manual you will achieve the level of you will achieve the purpose God had brought you into this earth to begin with for.
Correct. Correct. And some are built for noble use and some are built for ignoble use. And that's just the way it is. You can't see the good in someone until you see the evil around that person. I'm not talking about, you know, that person's immediate family or whatever. I mean, although that can happen, I'm talking about if you look at a person in the world and you see that person and their goodness, it's because it's contrast with the evil of the world. And the only way you see that contrast, the only way you can understand what's going on is Torah. Because even though it happened thousands of years ago, it's still happening today. So,
So, how do we go about wrapping this up? I think we just did, but
yeah, you mean like a
where?
burrito? You put it on a plate and you no?
I
How do you mean
mean,
wrap up? What is this thing you mean wrap up?
we take everything we had at the beginning, everything we had at the middle, everything we put at the end, and we give it a halal sandwich.
Ah, no halal. No halal.
What, you don't want a halal sandwich?
No halal. No, 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 no. Absolutely not. I might as well be eating a dung ball.
No, 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 no. It's true. The halal sandwich.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
huh.
we got
Well,
the matzah. We got the matzah.
no,
We've
no,
got
no,
the
no. What?
horseradish. We got
But
the.
you said halal.
No, no. I'm referring to the halal sandwich.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. What does another religion refer to animals that are killed and cleaned in a proper manner? They call it halal, right?
Yes, I know what you're trying to say.
Okay. All right. So even though I know what you're talking about, no halal. It's probably pronounced different from.
Well, we're about to derail drastically from the
Yeah.
Torah
Well, you're
portion.
talking you're
But
talking about
uh, yeah.
the Passover Seder.
Well, I must put in there real quick that I'm going to derail drastically from the Torah portion because you made the statement of halal, and it is this. One of the things that I have learned with the way that Judaism teaches how to interact with other
Cultures.
with other uh, monotheistic religions. The way that they taught it is a Jew can eat with a Muslim, but not converse with a Muslim when it comes to religious matters. A Jew can converse with a Christian, but not eat with a Christian. And the mindset behind that is a Christian is willing to understand and discuss with you to better understand the understanding of Torah, the understanding of the Bible as a whole. But but many Christians don't follow with the kosher laws, the clean laws. Muslims, in their own roundabout way, follow the clean laws. No pork, no shellfish. Cut it in a certain manner, drain it of the blood, etc. But we all know that many Muslims are not big on interreligious debates.
Correct. Correct.
And
And
that
that
was the mindset behind it. And
right.
that's my derailing. I'm done with the derailing.
But that's why I said no halal. Halal.
But that's good. Halal is good.
Well,
As
we'll
I
see.
said, as I said, you can eat with a Muslim, just don't converse with them.
Yeah. And you can talk with a Christian, but just don't eat with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we're not talking Messianics. We're talking Christians who still eat
You
trafe. Trafe
eat,
is
eat,
uncleanness.
eat pork, eat shellfish, things of that
Right.
nature.
Right. So
But
so
yes,
not to hurt anybody's feelings, but it says right here, do these things or you don't follow me. Period. So
yeah, yeah. So, how do we wrap this up? How do we put the burrito together?
let me explain. No, it's too much. Let me sum up. Uh, do what God says.
Do what God says.
Yeah,
I can see it.
because we've talked about everything else. We've already talked about the insides of the sandwich. So the outsides are do what God says.
Do what God says, and if you find it unsuccessful, if you find yourself unsuccessful, don't worry. God has a way for you to fix your problem.
Right. And I didn't say, you know, speak with God. Okay. Because the only time he talks to us is in visions and dreams. And that's to only few certain people. But those certain people are not, they're not the president. They're not the premier. They're not the prime minister. Okay. That, those certain people are not elevated above everybody else. You want to know what God says? Read the Torah. That's what God says. Don't forget, there's also the oral traditions too. If you don't agree with them, find out why. Read Talmud. Think about it. Anyway, that's all the wrap up I got.
And I think we've wrapped up rather nicely, or at least I believe we have.
Well, yeah, no, it might be like having a piece of matzah stuck in your gum, but you go. But hey, there's a reason for everything. Just look for what God says, and you'll find out what the reason is.
Yeah.
So, all
So,
right.
with that, this has been 2.5 opinions. We hope you took something of importance away from our discussion, because we have tried our best, even without our third party member being available. I think he'll be available next Saturday. We'll find out, though. The military has been telling him, "Go here, go there. Don't do this, do that."
Yeah. Well. So, this is 2.5 opinions. I'm Frank,
I'm Yishai, and the rabbi will,
and not
the
the.
not the Rebbe will be back next time.
Yeah. Hopefully. So, uh, shalom, shavua tov, lehitrot.
He threw it.
Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Take care.
Take care.
And that is, if I can get over here to the button, I gotta find the button.